Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to provide you with a brief presentation of the Police Department's annual report for 2020. Each of you were provided a copy of this report last week, and an electronic copy of this report will be posted on your website. The purpose of this report is to help you and viewers better understand crime in Manassas, our crime trends in context with the region, and to highlight the work we do every day to keep the city safe. In addition, it provides the necessary analysis to help the police department focus on goals and objectives, customize unique enforcement programs, and initiatives with changing demographics and crime priorities. Keeping this in mind, our strategic planning is developed in conjunction with the overall city strategic plan, the budget, staff, and our citizens. The police department's primary mission continues to be the prevention of crime while maintaining the excellent level of police services our residents and businesses have come to expect. When developing the strategic plan and goals, I ask four questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to be in 1, 3, and 5 years? How will we get there, or the plan? How will we know when we get there, the performance measures? With these questions, we develop 5 primary goals. Engage with our community through partnerships, programs, and communication. Promote public safety to reduce crime and the perception of crime. Foster a cooperative and harmonious environment that attracts a diverse workforce. Enhance department resources to maximize operational efficiency. Effectively plan and manage to ensure professionalism and excellence. These 5 goals have many objectives and measurements that will be published at the end of fiscal year 21. Now I will begin with some of the statistical items in the annual report. I'll begin on page 11 titled Comparison Summary, which is there for your quick reference and summary from related to statistics for crime, calls for service, arrest, accident data, and so forth. I will review these highlights with you as we continue. On page 12, we point out our overall crime rate or crime index of 19 crimes per 1,000 residents. This number is derived from the Part 1 crimes to total population. This is better highlighted for you on the 5-year crime index per 1,000 persons graph on this page and remains the lowest it has been in well over a decade. Beginning with offenses or crime data on page 13. Overall serious and crime or Part 1 offenses increased by 9%. The 2 areas with the largest numerical increase is aggravated assaults and larcenies. We have to be cautious when evaluating these numbers because the small increase can generate large percentage changes due to the low overall numbers. All crime overall incidents in the city for 2020 decreased by 2%. The other or all category includes simple assaults, domestic violence, fraud, runaways, hit and runs, and simple drug possession. I will detail more information later in this presentation. Moving on to page 14, we have broken out for you select quality of life offenses that impact families every day: domestic violence, mental health, substance abuse. The role of law enforcement around the country continues to change, and we see it here in the city of Manassas. We respond to and are expected to assist with more and more people with these issues, and these are some of the most dangerous calls our officers respond to. Even though there was an 8% decrease in domestic reports, 83% of the domestic calls resulted in an arrest. As I pointed out in prior years, the law is focused on how we process and handle cases that involve subjects that have mental health issues, has changed, and continues to evolve each year. Law enforcement is the first responder for handling these incidents. Mandated training for officers is now required by DCGS, and it has assisted us with how we respond. Law enforcement response to people with mental health needs will require more training, and time is the #1 tool we must incorporate. In simple terms, we cannot expect to resolve these incidents quickly. In some incidents, officers must maintain control or oversight of the person for up to 24 hours while bed space and or mental health personnel respond. At times, an officer's entire shift is consumed with one case. In 2020, we responded to 314 calls directly related to mental health. In addition to mental health, we include substance abuse in this category because many times they are related. You will see this again in arrest statistics. In 2020, we responded to 64 opiate-related overdoses, a 14% increase. With the continued expansion of parking districts and some select enforcement at the request of our residents, overall parking enforcement violations increased slightly by 1%, with a total of 8,634 violations. On pages 16 through 17 is the information on calls for service. We measure calls for service numerous ways to conduct efficiency, effectiveness, and equitability analysis. On page 16 is the total number of calls handled by our staff. In 2020, we responded to 68,849 calls for service, which is a 14% increase. We then break out information by officer-initiated versus citizen-initiated. The biggest change was in officer-initiated calls, which increased by 25%. Our goal continues to be allowing for proactive patrol time, meaning officers taking action before citizens call, and our ability to utilize hotspot policing through crime analysis. On page 17, we highlight and provide a map that displays the police beats and calls for service. The beats with the highest call levels continues to be Weems 1 and Baldwin, the Liberia Avenue corridor. On page 18 is the first series of measurement, dispatch reaction time, meaning how long does it take to answer the call, enter the information, and dispatch the call. I am pleased with the outcome, knowing it takes less than 1 minute for our staff to dispatch a priority 1. In 2020, we worked with IT to establish a home dispatch program. This was a vital program with COVID because it allows us to take calls and dispatch from home without exposing ourselves to COVID. Additionally, we believe it will go a long way in recruiting and retaining dispatchers. Next, on page 19, unit response or reaction times are highlighted. This graph represents the unit reaction time, or from the time the call is dispatched to officer arrival. 3 minutes is our benchmark for priority 1 calls, and we were well below the national average of 7 to 10 minutes. Again, staffing levels attribute greatly to this number and newer officers understanding the geographic layout of the city. Response times for the remaining calls for priority 2 and 3 fluctuate slightly from year to year, but this does not adversely affect the outcome of the call or place the caller or victim at risk, since these types of calls are lower priority and do not involve any life-threatening or in-progress crimes or circumstances. Arrests are next, highlighted on page 20 of the report. Total persons arrested, inclusive of juveniles and adults, was 1,698 people. There were 2,232 charges placed against these people. This is a 22% decrease in the number of persons charged. As I mentioned earlier, and you can see, quality of life issues were the highest number of arrests. Drugs and alcohol related violations accounted for 36% of Part 2 crimes. These numbers may change as the General Assembly moves toward decriminalizing some offenses. On page 21 is a summary of our traffic enforcement efforts. COVID restrictions greatly impacted the number of vehicles on the roads, thus impacting enforcement actions. Citations reduced by 25%. Last year, the city adopted a photo red light program. Again, due to COVID, this program was delayed. However, in December, we fully implemented the first location, Centerville Road and Liberia Avenue. The first 45 days, we issued 671 citations. We will continue planning for the next intersection analysis. I would also like to point out the traffic enforcement request is one of the highest requests I get from our residents. Next, on pages 22 and 23 is the detailed analysis on motor vehicle accidents. On these pages, you will find accidents analyzed by the cause factor, the day of week, and by location. Overall, as noted on page 22 of the report, accidents decreased by 24%, which equals 1,321 accidents. Beginning on page 24 is the newest section of our annual report, as I call it, the 21st Century Policing, or 2021 and beyond. This section highlights areas that are important to us, our community, and our CALEA standing. It demonstrates transparency and our commitment to professionalism and modern policing. The first section on page 24 focuses on how we are policing our community. The first table represents traffic stops. Beginning in 2018, CALEA Gold Standard compliance requires agencies to analyze traffic stops. In July of 2020, the Virginia General Assembly passed the Virginia Community Policing Act. CALEA and this act requires to collect driver information and analyze it to ensure there is no bias-based policing. This information is submitted to both CALEA and the Virginia State Police. Manassas City has been in compliance with these standards since 2018, and it ensures we are practicing fair and impartial policing. The second portion on pages 25 through 27 focuses on use of force. Again, the CALEA Gold Standard criteria and Virginia Community Policing Act require an analysis of our use of force practices. The agency recognizes and respects the value and integrity of human life. Any use of force should not be considered routine. It is permissible only in accordance with policy and law. We take use of force seriously. We capture every level on every call involving each officer on that incident. We then review each use of force to ensure it was justified, proper, within policy, and legal under the law. To fully understand what use of force means and how we capture this information, I provided a definition section on page 25 and examples section on page 26. I would like to walk you through example 1 so that you will fully understand the data provided on page 27. Officers conduct a high-risk traffic stop on a motor vehicle that is reported stolen. The suspected stolen vehicle is occupied by 4 subjects, and 4 officers conduct the traffic stop. Each occupant is removed from the vehicle through verbal commands. Each officer displays their firearm during the traffic stop. Each occupant is handcuffed and detained until confirmation of the stolen vehicle is confirmed. Ultimately, it is determined a friend took the vehicle and it is not stolen. All occupants were released at the conclusion of the incident. Total time elapsed, 18 minutes. This incident would generate multiple reports as described below. Number of incidents, 1. Number of offenders, 4. Number of use of force reports, 18. 16 of those in the firearm display, 4 officers times 4 offenders. Weaponless reports, 2. 2 of the subjects refused to place their hands behind their back, thus weaponless hand pressure point control was used. Again, the purpose of these examples are to demonstrate how in-depth we review each use of force and how quickly the number of use of force reports can be generated. In just these 2 examples, 24 use of force reports would be captured and calculated into the table. It is imperative that we do more than just look at the raw numbers. Each incident must be reviewed to ensure the integrity of the agency, and this data must be communicated to show transparency, thus building trust and legitimacy. Given that 126 incidents involve some type of use of force versus 3 complaints of excessive force filed against officers, 2 of those unfounded and 1 not sustained, demonstrates that our officers follow policy, respond to our training, and understand the role of use of force play in fair and impartial policing. On page 28 are the community survey results for public safety. We were well above the national average, but it did identify areas we could improve in traffic enforcement / safe roadways and increased visibility in our commercial and residential neighborhoods. On page 29 is the staffing data table. First, we have made great strides in staff retention with the implemented public safety pay plan. I would like to point out the demographics of the sworn police staff. We continue to be a leader in the profession with 24% of our staff being female, and we have made great strides in improving our overall diversity with 45% of the sworn staff being non-Caucasian males. This is important to us and our community. Listed just below the data table is training requirements. Some of the challenges we face is meeting our mandated training requirements. As we move forward with police reform measures, it will require more training requirements. Mandated training includes areas such as legal, workplace behavior, firearms, use of force, career development, and the list goes on. In all, it amounts to approximately 130 officers per officer. This number does not include other training that is required to maintain or get certifications. We spend many more hours training for SWAT, crisis negotiation, K-9, civil disturbance, and seeking out specialty courses such as instructor courses or crime scene forensics. Some of these courses are 80 to 300 hours each. Staffing in general must remain a top priority. We have to ensure proper staffing levels, address attrition, maintain competitive pay and benefits to the region, train and mentor our staff, and be aware of and address the mental and physical well-being of all employees in this stressful but rewarding profession we have chosen. There is a clear link between mental and physical well-being of officers and how we interact with our residents. Our attitude, communication style, and use of force can all be tied to this. We must be at our best daily and treat people with dignity and respect. In 2020, I attended 2 high-profile community conversations, one on May 31st on Liberia Avenue and one on June 6th at the Manassas Museum. Staff attended many other events, both virtually and in person. We will continue to build community trust through community outreach, and crime prevention programs will be reviewed and implemented where funding and staffing allows. In 2020, we secured grant-funded community vitality officers that will work directly with our schools and businesses to engage youth and reduce juvenile crime. We will continue to plan for and support the development of a new facility on Grant Avenue that will house proper working space, much needed storage space, and allow for effective and proper property and evidence processing and storage. To maintain the high standards we have set, there are several priorities and goals we need to work towards. We must continue our commitment to CALEA Gold Standard and the reputation it brings to our city and the agency. The picture depicted on the screen is our standing with CALEA, the highest level achievable. I would like to add this achievement would not be possible without the support and help from our residents and city staff. I want to personally thank Mr. Pate and all the staff that support us. Mr. Pate has put together a great leadership team that focuses on teamwork and customer service. So, where do we go from here? I will celebrate 11 years as your Chief of Police in May. I'm proud of the accomplishments we continue to share as an organization in the midst of these challenging times. As an agency, we have achieved the highest level possible within National Accreditation or CALEA process, had high ratings in the Manager's Community Survey, and crime rates remain the lowest in over 10 years. I want to thank the staff for their tireless efforts, hard work, professionalism, and support of me and the initiatives I have brought forward as the Chief of Police. I still believe we are fortunate at a time when many communities are struggling with their relationships with law enforcement. We continue to receive support from ours. This cannot and should not go unnoticed. By practicing and embracing fair and impartial policing and setting high professional standards, we will continue to build these relationships. So with that, we stand ready to respond to any questions you may have.